I love that so much. It rings so true of something that I always always say to anybody I'm working with in diversity of inclusion journey is I need you to stay present, not perfect. It's not about showing up in this space right now and always saying the right thing. I just need you to be present, right? That says something. And committing to continuing to be present, even when your actions aren't perfect, is part of what I think so often to marginalized communities, we see that. Like we see someone who stays present in these communities, not the person who comes in one time a year and does this great thing and then just leaves. Like we do pay attention to that. We do see that. And so when you as a leader commit to something like that, know that it's okay that you say the wrong thing. What I really care about is even though you said the wrong thing, are you going to come back next time? Because that's hard and that takes commitment.
That's hard. And I love how you use the word journey because it is a journey. It's not a one off.
Yeah.
This is not a let's qualify for great places to work exercise.
Yeah.
This is a journey, it's a continuum, and it actually evolves over time. Perfect example is we have an influx of the Gen Zers coming into the workplace, right? And they are being disruptive in so many ways for good reasons. That's also a part of DEI. So, what's next? The alpha generation in a few years will start coming into the workplace, and so we have to prepare for that. So, this is a journey. It's a journey of exploration, intention, and action towards being inclusive of everyone, everywhere, and making sure that they all feel seen and heard.
Well, that does bring up something that I saw in doing some research to prepare for our conversation that I want to learn more about. Seems kind of in line with what we're talking about. It's called CQ or cultural intelligence. Tell me more about that and what exactly do we use it for? How is it applied?
CQ is basically a framework that helps you understand and navigate differences
Okay.
better. In a very, it's a very simplified way of explaining, copious amounts of research behind this framework. But what it entails is a framework that includes four capabilities: CQ strategy, CQ knowledge, CQ action, and CQ drive. And the reason why there are these four capabilities is because they all intersect in how you navigate
Mm.
cultural differences. For example, using the Gen Z generation, there's a lot of uh, contention and misunderstanding around what it is that they need, and what is up with all this disruption and all these requests, and all the different dynamics that comes with this generation, right? So knowledge will tell you this one generation has experienced more traumatic events than any other generation in the mix. At every single milestone in their lifetime, they've experienced some sort of worldwide traumatic event cemented by COVID, which was not too long ago.
Yeah.
So they didn't get to experience all of the what we call normal social experiences, like going to prom or graduating, in a way that the other generations did, right? So we have this knowledge. How do we strategize around that? Well, understand the reasons behind all this trauma and why this is such an anxious generation, right? So there comes the CQ knowledge aspect. The CQ drive plays into our motivation to understand and relate better with this generation, whether it's in the workplace or at home or anywhere in between, even if it's at the supermarket. And then your action, you cannot create connection. You cannot create a sense of community if you don't take action. How are you going to use this information that you know in order to act with this group? How are you going to adapt your conversations, your behaviors, your interactions? And so this is how all four capabilities come together, right? Cultural intelligence is in my opinion, a good way to approach differences because it provides this neutral language for navigating all these differences that can get emotionally loaded sometimes.
I think that's such a good word, and something that came to mind when you were speaking was the one word over and over again, and it was authenticity. That oftentimes what is missing, or where I've seen these conversations go awry, is some of the concepts you talked about. To me, it manifests itself as authenticity. Are you authentically trying to connect with someone, or are you only focused on getting across your point of view and talking through what exactly you think their experience may or may not be, and not authentically trying? And I also think part of being authentic to me is, if you make a mistake, owning it, because I authentically care to make a connection with you. And so if I don't authentically care about you and I make a mistake, but I don't, I'm too prideful to own up to the fact that that was hurtful to you, that's problematic. It doesn't matter if, like, for example, one of the, it happened to me recently in a prior podcast. I guess not recently at this point, but I was having a conversation with a gentleman with a disability. And we were having the conversation, and I believe I was using the term people with disabilities. And I had never asked him, and I realized in the middle of our podcast, like, I hadn't asked him the term he preferred, and it didn't dawn on me, I think, until he said disability. Like, he just likes the term disability, and I paused the podcast, and then I was like, I have to apologize. I didn't ask which term you preferred. What term do you prefer? And he's like, disability and justice. Thank you for doing that. And honestly,
Hmm.
appreciate the thank you. So grateful. But I think until we get to the point where that's not like I don't need a thank you for that. It's just like a natural part of conversation with, yeah, you get corrected, and it doesn't hurt your pride. It doesn't hurt any part of you. You're just able to continue and acknowledge, like, actually, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I'm so sorry about that. Let's go back and let's just, what can we do to move on? Because I think that's something that's so important, and I hear in that framework that you were just talking about, that is really special.
That's a great example, Justice, because it requires a high degree of humility, right? Humility and grace, not only for the person who's learning, but also the person who's educating, right? Because it takes two. Being humble enough to assert what it is that you feel is important to your identity, but also being humble enough to recognize that you don't have all the answers and you're learning. You're learning as you go, really. You may have this general understanding, but you're always enhancing that understanding through learning experiences, through the knowledge that you acquire, through reading, through research. Um, and I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to that, right?
Mhm.
In your example, you said it perfectly. You apologized, you acknowledged, and you took action and incorporated it into your conversation. That's the essence of DEI.
Mhm.
It's not about perfection, to your point. It's about, creating a space where you can authentically say, this is important to me,
Yes.
and it needs to be acknowledged. And the person on the receiving end acknowledges and accepts that because it's important to you. They don't have to agree, they don't have to adopt what's important to you. But if they understand, it'll help them navigate that exchange better.